Joining us now, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Okay, I want to get to some foreign policy, but first, what's going down here in Washington as the big, beautiful bill, as it's been called, is now heading to you in the Senate. The Hill says this: House GOP leaders spent weeks in delicate talks with Republican holdouts before cobbling together a fragile agreement. The critical voices of the House debate are cautioning their upper chamber counterparts not to alter their design too severely, or it will never get through the House on its return. We'll talk about some of your specific objections, but how much does that worry factor into your calculus, whether or not what you do in the Senate can get back through the House?
You know, the bigger a bill, the more it includes, the more difficult it is to get everybody to agree to things. I supported the tax cuts in 2017. I support making them permanent, so I support that part of the bill. I support spending cuts. I think the cuts currently in the bill are wimpy and anemic, but I still would support the bill, even with wimpy and anemic cuts, if they weren't going to explode the debt. The problem is the math doesn't add up. They're going to explode the debt by, the House says $4 trillion. The Senate's actually been talking about exploding the debt $5 trillion. This year in September, when our fiscal year ends, the deficit will be about $2.2 trillion. Now, people used to always say, the Republicans would say, well, that's Bidenomics, that's Biden spending levels. When March, every Republican, virtually every Republican other than me, voted to continue the Biden spending levels, which are going to give us a $2.2 trillion deficit. Now, if you increase the debt ceiling $4 to $5 trillion, that means they're planning on $2 trillion this year and more than $2 trillion next year. That's just not conservative. So I've told them if they strip out the debt ceiling, I'll consider, even with the imperfections, voting for the rest of the bill. But I can't vote to raise the debt ceiling $5 trillion. There's got to be someone left in Washington who thinks debt is wrong and deficits are wrong and wants to go in the other direction. The idea that we're going to explode deficits, and the projections are now looking at over $3 trillion in deficits over the next 10 years, I think is just, not a serious proposal.
So you know the debt ceiling is going to come sooner or later, and Republicans, many of them, and those who advocate for including the debt ceiling being raised within this measure say, take it off the table now, because otherwise you're going to have really knockdown, drag-out fights with Democrats further down the road. They're going to have more leverage when you're facing that debt ceiling. So do you cede something by taking it out of this bill and leaving it for further debates that may be to Democrats' advantage down the road?
Well, they want to take it out of this bill because it is a walk of shame. Every time the debt ceiling raises, the people who've been voting for the spending have to walk in shame to the front of the House or the front of the Senate and say, yes, I've been voting for all these deficit spending, and now I'm willing to vote to raise the debt ceiling. But I would say the opposite. I offered an amendment 2 weeks ago to raise the debt ceiling for 3 months. That's $500 billion, believe it or not, for 3 months. And the reason I do it every 3 months and force the vote is it's a point of leverage. It's an inflection point at which we can look back at leadership and said, you promised you were going to cut spending. Oh, you promised tomorrow. You promised next week. You promised next year. But you know what? You're not doing it, so I'm not going to raise it again. So this leverage would work. If you do it for 2 years, you're right. It goes through all the elections, goes on the back burner, and the debt accumulates like it always had. This is more of the same. This is what the Democrats have always done, and this is the Republicans using the same playbook.
Okay, let's talk about things where some of your GOP colleagues there in the Senate are worried about too many cuts to specific programs. They're worried about impact on Medicaid. They're worried about SNAP. And really this idea that if you add work requirements or make it tougher to access those assistance programs, millions of people could be thrown off of health insurance. They could lose their access to food and medical coverage and insurance. So as a physician yourself, where do you stand on those arguments?
Well, see, on the one hand, you can offer people free stuff. You can say, I'll give you free health care. And people are, oh, thank you for free health care. But what you don't tell them is we're borrowing the money from China to pay for your health care. So we run a deficit, $2 trillion, which leads to inflation, which leads to rising prices, which squeezes you on the other side. So the bottom line is there is no free lunch. You can offer people free stuff, but if you're borrowing money to do it, you end up punishing them with inflation. The same people that are getting the free stuff are also being punished by inflation and never seem to creep out of poverty or climb up out of poverty. So it's a bait and switch. It isn't good. But I do think the deficit is a threat to our country. I think it's the greatest threat to our national security. And so I think you can't do this. We bring in about $5 trillion in revenue, and we spend $7 trillion. That's about what we do. The $5 trillion is consumed by Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, and other welfare programs. The mandatory programs consume all of it. So the people say, well, we're taking this off the table and we're not going to touch any of those programs. Well, they're just not frankly serious. I'm all for the DOGE cuts and I'll vote for every one of them. But, you know, the administration now is afraid to send them back because Republican leadership on both sides is saying, we're not sure we can pass a $9 billion cut. And so what we're really stuck with is the math doesn't work. All the great DOGE stuff, all the great stuff Elon Musk has done is out there. And people are going to wake up in about 2 months and say, how come the deficit's still $2.2 trillion? Where did the savings go? People are going to be very disappointed, conservatives, and I'm the one ringing the alarm saying they're not doing anything. They're not sending us a rescission package. They're not cutting spending. Somebody has to stand up and yell, the emperor has no clothes, and everybody's falling in lockstep on this. Pass the big, beautiful bill. Don't question anything. Well, conservatives do need to stand up and have their voice heard. This is a problem we've been facing for decades now, and if we don't stand up on it, I really fear the direction the country is going.
The speaker is coming up, so we'll ask him about all of your concerns. But before you go, I want to quickly ask you about this. You're chair of the Senate Homeland Security Committee. We've been hearing a lot about then Congresswoman, now Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard being put on a TSA fly list or a watch list. Will you be able to tell us who put her on the list, and are there other lawmakers on the list?
Not today, but I will tell you, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. This is offensive to every principle of civil liberty in our country. What we do think happened is that she was put on the list for a speech violation, for her First Amendment speech, for her political opinions, I believe while she was a congresswoman. But then she was protected. So they put her on the list and then they said, oh, well, we don't spy on congressmen until she wasn't a congressman. And then she automatically popped back up as someone we're going to spy on. So I think there may be other congressmen. I'm going to find out whether there are any congressmen or senators on the list because they're protected from being spied on until they leave office and then we spy on them. This is a real problem. I've been trying to get the information on this for close to a year. I sent letter after letter to the Biden administration and got nothing. What I can tell you is the Trump administration is cooperating. I think they want to get to the bottom of this. I want to find out who the person was, what their name was, and what their arguments were for putting Tulsi Gabbard on this list. And they need to be let go and never, ever put in his position again. But the program needs to be reformed also. We should not have anybody in America on a watch list because of their speech.
Well, we will look for answers as you get them. Please share them with us, Senator. Great to see you today.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.